My name is Emily Tobar Clark. Welcome to my presentation. I'm going to be covering sociological imagination and other related concepts, but before I do, I think it might be best to start with some definitions, like what is sociology? Sociology studies societies, groups, group interactions, and social interactions through scientific and systemic methods. What is the sociological imagination? Sociological imagination is the awareness of the relationship between a person's behavior and experience and the wider culture that shaped that person's choices and perceptions. This is a useful tool to use when living and functioning in a world alongside people with completely different experiences and backgrounds to you. And what are social forces? Social forces are things like culture, which refers to the mostly intangible aspects of social life shared by groups of people through language, beliefs, values, arts, customs, institutions, and practices. Social structures can be seen on the micro and macro levels and in social institutions, which are major spheres of social life that organize and regulate human behavior, such as schools and religious organizations. So, how is sociology significant in my personal experience? Sociology is significant in all of our lives, whether we know it or not. But in mine specifically, I would say social norms and social roles have played a very significant role in my life. What are considered norms in society are usually learned by everyone as we discover what is socially acceptable in culture. For some, however, those norms come more naturally, and for others, they don't. When I was young, I vehemently contested social norms. Uh, that was easy to do, being a homeschooled kid, surrounded by a community of other homeschooled kids. Social norms didn't come naturally, and when I was admonished or mocked for my inability to understand them, I wore it like a badge of honor. Being called weird was a high compliment, not just to me, but to my friend group. Uh, Over the years and over a series of moves, however, it became harder and harder not to care. Learning social norms became the only way I could cope. I was desperate to make connections, to make friends, and I used to just Google how to act, how to be friends, how to talk to other girls, how to talk to boys, how to, you know, make phone calls, how to leave a voicemail message. I used to Google things like that because I didn't know how I was supposed to behave. And when I had to go to events, I, I would ask people who would have gone to them, like, what am I supposed to do? What's a normal way to talk to each other? So valuable that we have access to that now to where I can look that up and have that information. How does the sociological imagination help me understand the impact of sociology in my own life? Societal structures are built in a way that different groups of people experience alternative versions of the same things based on how they look, where they come from, how they act, and generally how they're perceived. How people behave often reflects how they have been trained to behave based on how society perceives them. It's helpful to me to remember that before judging why someone did something differently than I might have. This is extremely useful to me as someone with a diverse family and friend group. My father is El Salvadorian, and I have a very big mixed family. And even within that, you also just have the different ways that men and women are perceived in society and different generations and age groups. It's and where you are geographically in this country. So all of that affects how we behave and the choices that we make. And knowing that helps you to interact with other people and maybe empathize with them more. What is the relationship between the individual and society? Sociologists consider the individual and society to be inseparable, making it impossible to study one without understanding the other. Personal experiences that people have that carry significance on the micro level can be things like family gatherings. They're small social events, but they help to shape our values and beliefs. These interactions contribute to our social world and our places in it. Micro level theories are used to study individuals in small groups, whereas macro level is a bigger look at the role of social structures within society. Some agents of socialization at the macro level can be schools and religious organizations. And nowadays, social media has become somewhat of a social agent with its own effects on society at large. This can look like trends, even negative ones, like the Tide Pod eating challenge a couple of years ago. It has a lot of influence on society and our behaviors and choices. Uh, there's also positive ones, like even in my personal experience, it has been wonderful to use social media to educate myself on what's happening in Palestine. And it's great that we have access to that. And it's on such a large scale that I am getting the same information that somebody in California is getting. Sociological theories like symbolic interactionism and conflict theory have helped me to understand the relationship between the individual and society by being able to see where mine and others' behaviors might derive from. It also helps me to empathize with experiences that I may never be able to relate to because of the position that I'm in within society or the interactions that I'm part of versus someone of a different generation or culture. So, how can sociological theory help you to, or help me to understand the relationship between the individual and society? I think symbolic interactionism theory does a lot of good to understand how individuals who are online so much, who are speaking a language and using customs that are designed around a virtual society, interact with each other outside of it, and interact with society as a whole. It is going to be so deeply interwoven with society, our interactions with each other online. And so I think symbolic interactionism is really important to understand how that affects our behaviors in society. Between qualitative and quantitative methods, which would better describe the relationship between the individual and society? I think qualitative methods are more personal, which can be extremely useful for understanding individual behavior. Those methods provide more context and insight on why a person behaved the way they did, or provide full descriptions of experiences that they've had. That deeper context might be lost in quantitative research. Personally, I love quantitative methods. Experiments and surveys are clinical and structured. I love percentages and statistics, but they don't provide deeper insight, which I think is important when trying to understand human behavior. Of course, I still think that a mix of both would be best. I think qualitative methods like field research and case studies are well suited for this, but quantitative methods can give a better understanding of social patterns at large, which they do relate to each other. So I think it's useful to use a mix of both. I have for you today, so go ahead and check my references and have a good day. Bye.